Buenos días, Padre. Ah, quisiera, si es posible, que nos cuente usted sus memorias del Sagrado Corazón, en qué año llegaron, cómo fue su, sus memorias.
Bueno, mi familia llegó en el 95 como refugiados políticos y Caridades Católicas nos ayudó. En aquel entonces Caridades Católicas tenía unos apartamentos en la esquina de Breedlove y Chelsea.
Ajá. Padre, perdón, ¿quiere hacerlo en inglés?
Lo que prefiero.
Así,
¿Qué es
sí,
lo que...?
porque le estoy acordando que los de español los vamos a traducir.
Okay,
Entonces
okay.
creo que sería mejor de una vez.
Okay, sí, está bien.
Entonces, adelante, de nuevo.
Okay, my family arrived in 1995 from Cuba as political refugees, and we ended up in Memphis with the help of Catholic Charities of West Tennessee. At the time, Catholic Charities had apartments at the corner of Breedlove and Chelsea, and there were several refugees living there. And of course, the Catholic Charities building was across the street from Sacred Heart, and they provided us with clothing and things for the apartment, and also there were classes for English classes and all of the agencies, I guess, to help my parents and my grandfather find a job. So we were familiar with that building, but also on Sundays there was a minivan that would come from Sacred Heart to pick people up from the apartments to take them to Mass. And at the time, that was the only Spanish Mass. So, we became acquainted with Sacred Heart, and just that was the only Catholic church that we knew of. Eventually, we moved away from those apartments, and getting caught up in things here in the States, we didn't go back to Mass there, but that was still the only Catholic church that we knew of. Later then in 2001, when I was in middle school, finishing up the middle school, about to enter high school, and through God's grace, realized I needed to start practicing my faith. That was, Sacred Heart was the first place that I thought of, the only place that I thought of. Even though we lived actually right down the street from Ascension Parish, Sacred Heart was the Catholic church that we knew of. And so I went to Mass there, and during the announcements, I believe it was Leticia Tinoco who made the announcements. I approached her and said that I was interested in getting involved in the church, and I was 14 at the time. I hadn't made my first communion or anything, so I immediately got put into the classes for confirmation, and I was confirmed in that spring, and then started serving. And Father Knight was pastor there at the time. And shortly after that, the next year, Father Knight retired, and then the SVDs came. Father Joseph Vu was the pastor, and he came. Father Miguel, I don't remember what his last name was, and Father Frank. And so I Sacred Heart was my home parish, and I served there every Sunday. We did a lot of things as far as helping cleaning the church for all of the major liturgies, the Triduum, Holy Week, things like that. My brother and I were involved, and like I said, that was home until I left for the seminary. I graduated high school in 2005, May of 2005, and I entered the seminary that August, so August of 2005. And Sacred Heart was all that time my home parish. I was ordained in 2014. And I had my first Mass there at Sacred Heart the Sunday, 2 Sundays after my ordination, so it was Trinity Sunday of 2014.
Gracias, brother. Thank you very much. There's anything else that I can...
Well, Sacred Heart has had a very rich history. It was at one point, to my understanding, it was the largest parish in West Tennessee. Back then, still the Diocese of Nashville. I know that at one point the pastor, Monsignor Harold Shea, who died in the late '60s, was the dean of West Tennessee, and he was pastor at Sacred Heart. It was very large. I think it had 6 priests at one time.
Wow!
In its heyday. After the council, and then certainly after the diocese was established, things changed. Demographics changed. The high school eventually closed, and when the diocese was established, the high school building became the chancery building. But it had a little bit of a revival, certainly with when the Cursillos started in Memphis. Sacred Heart was kind of the home base for the Cursillos. They had everything there. They had that set up beds and everything down in the parish hall or the basement. So it's very much been a spiritual home for many. And then again, and later on when the Hispanic ministry began in Memphis, Sacred Heart was again home base there. Was the first parish to really have Spanish Mass. To my understanding, from there it grew to St. Michael's, and then it started growing to the different parishes that we have now. But Sacred Heart was always, for the longest time, was home for the Spanish-speaking Catholics of Memphis.
Ay, pues muchísimas gracias. Thank you very much, Father. It's really amazing how this can start coming up little by little, and now this Memphis is something else.
That's right.
That's right. And all I can say is thank you. Thank you, and you're invited to the celebration.
Sacred Heart is a beautiful place. It has a lot of history. It means a lot to a lot of people.
Yes.
It's a beautiful place, and it's a great blessing that we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the dedication of the church.
Sure, it's gonna be, and I hope we can be there by now, because we still the conservation. The altar is gonna be, they say it's gonna be on May the 14th. So probably we're gonna have back our church. Yes. Everything is set up, and